Hey guys, it's Will. So we have a special kind of weird random episode here. It's sort of first watch, but as you can see, we're not in our proper studio, and it's not as formal as first watch usually is, and Mike is not here with me. We don't have the whole setup. And one of the reasons for that is that I just wanted to talk. This movie is called Andrei Rublev. It was directed by Andrei Tarkovsky. It came out in 1966. It is a historical epic from Russia/Soviet Union. And so usually with our first watch videos, we watch a movie and then we just kind of talk about like, oh, it was really fun watching this movie, and like this part was silly, that part was stupid, whatever. We usually do like horror movies, action movies, thrillers, like trashy 80s movies, martial arts movies, stuff of that nature. So this doesn't really fit into that really, and I'm also only going to talk about one aspect of this movie because a lot of the stuff that we do for first watch is typically it's the kind of movie that you can watch it, get what's going on, respond to it, have a good time, and not have to go and think about it too much. And what we have here is, I mean, Andrei Tarkovsky is, I would probably say, undisputably one of like the great masters of cinema. And this is a 3-hour film. There's also like a 205-minute cut on here that is about medieval Russian history, which is something I don't really know anything about. So obviously I'm missing a lot of the historical context here. And it's not really a movie that I think you could just watch once, get it, and be like, oh, hey, I'm going to do my review now. So I don't want to like officially call this a first watch video, but so the way this movie is set up is it's divided into segments. And each segment looks at like a different aspect of medieval Russia. Here, this is like the awesome Criterion Collection kind of packaging here. And it's focused around Andrei Rublev, who was a Russian painter, like a religious painter. Like I think he was a monk, and he painted like religious icons, and he painted like in churches and stuff like that. And so something that I really picked up on while watching this movie, and so it's not a story, really. It doesn't go from point A to point B and tell you a story. It's about recreating this era in history. And within that, what it does, it essentially, and when you have monks, obviously, you have the theme of religion, you have the theme of God, you have the themes of the enormity of history and of the enormity of human society. And when you're looking back over the course of whatever, 600 years, I think he made this something like 600 years after this guy lived, 500 years, then you have also this enormous distance of history that you're looking over. And all these people are long dead, right? And there's this really interesting kind of theme throughout of the insignificance of the individual and the fleetingness of human nature in the face of the enormity of all these things. And in each of these segments, there are shots that express that theme. So there's one where a painter goes out into the woods and washes his paintbrushes in like a stream or a river or something like that. And the last, if I remember correctly, the last shot of that section is the paint just kind of drifting away and dissipating in the water. You have another scene or big sequence that ends with people riding horses away in the rain in the distance, and they just kind of disappear in the landscape. There's another section where you see lots of snow, people kind of vanishing in the snow. There's one where people are running through the darkness of the night with torches, and then the people kind of appear and vanish in the light and the darkness. And there's a lot of this kind of things appearing and then vanishing and dissipating. And I think that, I mean, as someone who studied Buddhism and Japanese Buddhism in particular, like you have a lot of that imagery in Buddhism and the fleeting nature of human existence and human emotions and things like that. And I think that that really ties into what Tarkovsky is looking at in this movie, which is kind of like what is the fundamental nature of existence and what drives people in their existence given the irrelevance and the fleeting nature of a human life. And so when you have a figure like Andrei Rublev, obviously you have religion and you have art, right? But I don't think it's necessarily about those things in a literal way, but in what different people find to give their lives meaning. So the thing that I really wanted to talk about here, given that kind of that backdrop that I set up, is the way that this movie is bookended, which I think is really interesting. The opening scene is this guy who's almost like this kind of like medieval Russian mad scientist who builds a flying contraption and goes to the top of this church and jumps off the church tower, and he flies like very, very briefly, and then he crashes and he dies. And that's just kind of like the way that the film is like the way the world of the film is set up. And then the end of the film is actually not even about Andrei Rublev. It's about this kid who lives in this village where all the bell makers live, and his dad is like a master bell maker, but basically everyone in their village has died of the plague. And so these people come, these like emissaries of the king or the czar or whoever, and they're like, we need a bell for this new church. Where's the master bell maker? Who is this kid's dad? He's like, he's dead. They're like, where's the other master bell maker? He's like, everyone's dead. There's like the plague game. They're all dead. I'm the only person left. And he convinces them, though, that, and he's like a teenager, he convinces them that his dad taught him how to make a great bell and that he can do it. And so this huge, and this sequence really reminds me of There Will Be Blood, the way it's shot, and it's, this big scaffolding, this infrastructure, and they build this big hole in the earth, and they get all this mud, and they, like, all the materials to build the bell, right? And it culminates in this massive crescendo of like pouring all the molten metal into this mold that they've created, and all of these people pulling on these levers, and it's this enormous endeavor, and you don't know what's going to happen, and you're not sure if this kid is lying and whether or not he actually knows how to make a bell, because people around him keep saying like, hey, this is not going to work, like you're casting it too hot, or you've made it incorrectly, if you peel the mud off now it's going to collapse, like all this stuff. And spoiler alert, in the end he makes like a phenomenal bell. And so the movie is bookended by these people who endeavor to try to create something enormous and impossible in the face of all, like, everyone and everything telling them they can't do it, and they end up doing it. And with the guy who flies, he does it very briefly, but he does it. And with the making of the bell, he creates this enduring work. And so I think that the bookends of this movie are testaments to art, but also to humanity and human society, and almost counterpoints to all of this imagery of the irrelevance of the individual, right? That if you can pool all of these resources, if you can really believe in something, and if you can find a true passion, which is a lot of what this film is about, through like religion and art and stuff, then through tremendous effort and perseverance, and in the face of everyone telling you you won't be able to do something, you can create something meaningful and enduring in the face of all this chaos and darkness and the enormity of time and space and your own irrelevance as like an individual being in this vast cosmos. So, and that's just one aspect of this movie, like I said. There's so much that you could dig into here. I'm sure you could write a dissertation about it, make a documentary about it. It's a really phenomenal, profound, and impactful film. It is called Andrei Rublev. The filmmaker is Andrei Tarkovsky. It is a Russian film. It came out in 1966. My name has been Will. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.